Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Xojo webinar. I'm Paul Lefevre, the Xojo Developer Evangelist, and the topic this time is desktop toolbars. So toolbars, everyone's used a toolbar, so I'm going to kind of presume you know what they are. They're at the top of a window, give you a bunch of buttons to click. In desktop apps, you're going to create your toolbar using the desktop Toolbar Editor. So you just add a toolbar to your project using the Insert button or menu, and then you'll be able to click on it to get to the editor. Once your toolbar is designed there, you can just drag it onto a window layout. It'll actually appear on the bottom of the window in what we call the shelf. It doesn't appear on the window layout itself as part of a UI control, because it's really kind of not a control in that sense. It's actually physically part of the window. You can have one toolbar per window, but different windows can have different toolbars if that's a design you do need. And some of the features of the toolbars are each button can have a caption, an icon, a tooltip that appears when the mouse hovers over the button, and there are a variety of button styles that the toolbar can use. And what are those styles? Well, the most common one is a push button. So you click on it. Generally, that initiates some action in your app. There can also be a drop-down button. So when you click on it, a menu drops below the button itself to give multiple options, typically. A variation in that style is the separate drop-down button. I think that might only show differently on Windows, maybe. I don't really use that one too often. That just shows the menu a little differently than a typical drop-down button. A toggle button would stay selected when you click it. So it might indicate some state in your app. Like if you've ever seen a toolbar that has like bold italic buttons on it, when you click bold, the button kind of stays pressed. So that would be a toggle button. And there are a variety of things that you can use to kind of space your buttons. On Windows and Linux, you can use a separator. That's just going to be a vertical line. On Mac and Linux, you can use a space. So that's just an invisible gap between the buttons. And then also on Mac and Linux, you can use something called a flexible space, which allows you to have buttons that appear only on the right side of the toolbar. So the space grows or shrinks enough to just make sure that buttons to the right of it stay on the right-hand side of the toolbar. When you want icons on your toolbar, and you definitely are going to want icons because they look cool, you just add them to your project using image sets. And you're going to want to provide at least 1x and 2x sizes so that your toolbar icons look nice and sharp on Retina and high DPI displays. And then when you're designing your toolbar in the Toolbar Editor, you'll just choose the name of the image set for the icon. And I'll just point out a few places where you can grab some icons. These are some free sources that I've used for various things in the past. Fat Cow has a bunch of free icons, I think almost like 4,000. Unfortunately, they're rather small, 16 by 16 and 32 by 32, but that does function for 1x and 2x sizes, so they can be used in a pinch. Open Iconic is an open source library. Not as many icons in this set, but there's more sizes to play around with. And then this one is kind of a combination of free/paid, Icons 8. There's a ton of icons available here that can be used for free, and they also have a subscription service, and they seem to provide lots of new icons monthly. So that might be another option. And of course, there's icons all over the place and different services you can subscribe to, different places that have free ones. And you can pay people to design your own icons for your apps as well. So lots of choices there. But having a free source can be great, if you're just mocking up or you want to get a feel for how things look. Once your toolbar is all ready and running, how do you handle the button presses? Well, there's toolbar events for that. Two in particular. The action event is called for regular button presses, and then the drop-down menu action is called for the button that has a menu on it. to tell you which menu item was selected. In addition to designing your toolbar using the Toolbar Editor, you can also have a dynamic toolbar and do everything in code. You can use this to add or remove buttons at runtime. And that's probably the most common use. And there's a variety of methods on Toolbar that can be used for that. Append, count, insert, item, pulls up a particular button, and then remove. So if your toolbar needs a bit more flexibility, you can do some stuff dynamically. All right, let's jump into Xojo here. I got 3 examples we'll take a look at. All right, here I have a pretty much empty desktop project. There's nothing in it. It's got default stuff. There's a window here. So I want to add a toolbar. Just go insert and pick toolbar. And here's the Toolbar Editor. There's really only one thing you can do in the Toolbar Editor, and that is add buttons. So I can click the add button here. And then in the inspector, you've got the variety of typical properties you might see. So you can give your button a name. You can start it as enabled or whatnot. You can change the style to one of the various options here. Provide a help tag and the caption, and then choose an icon. I don't have an icon in this project, so let's add one. I'll use the fat cow icons here. All right, so what might make a good icon? I don't want to search too long, so let's just take this computer one. I don't like that one. Yeah, that one looks fun. So I just drag this into Xojo. I immediately get an image set with that filled into the 1x slot. And I can then go to the corresponding 32 section. I can find that one again here. And I can drag the 32 one into its spot. So that gives me my 1 and 2x icon sizes here. Then I can go back to my editor, click on the button, and now choose that there so it shows up here in the preview so you can see what it looks like. And I can add other stuff here. I can put a space. And I can not have an icon. That doesn't generally look as nice, of course. And one of the big reasons for toolbars is people like the pictures. So putting an icon is always good. And that's the 32. I like to start with the smaller one when I'm dragging it over because it's the one that'll go in the 1x slot. And then to use the toolbar, in this case here, I want to put it on this window. I can just drag it from the navigator onto the layout somewhere. And you'll see here it shows down on the shelf, like I mentioned. And that's where it appears. You're not going to see it in the layout here. You'll see it at runtime when you actually run. So if I do run now, we'll see the toolbar is showing on the window. Buttons are here. Don't really do anything yet because we haven't put any code in. So if we want to do something when the button is clicked, we can select the toolbar that's on the window and we can add the event handler. So in this case, the action event handler tells us which toolbar button was clicked. So we can just do a select case on that. And you can do, whatever you want to do your select case on it. So, you got various properties. Name is probably a good one for a lot of cases because that's not going to change as often. Caption might not be great, especially if you localize or you just go and change the text of your captions quite a bit. You have to remember to tweak your code. So that one's a little riskier probably to use. So I tend to use name in most cases. And I don't think I gave them both names. I had this one, a save button. This one I didn't give a name. So it does force you to provide some names here. And oh, that's right. These actually have to be the name, not the class name. So I have to put that in quotes. And then when I click the buttons, in this case, the message box came up on the first one and didn't on the second one. Because I guess it didn't remember that I changed the name here. I'm not sure why that didn't get flagged there. So let's do a debugger step and see if something jumps out at me. See, I typed clear item as the name. No, it says clear button here. Wasn't that peculiar? Well, that's besides the point, I guess, at this point. And yeah, I know I named it clear button, which is what I put here, but the debugger was telling me it was called clear item, which is what's puzzling me at the moment. Oh, Gavin's telling me I changed the whole toolbar name. Is that what I did on this? Oh, yeah, I was clicking on the wrong spot. That's why I don't like to do too much typing live, because I tend to make mistakes with my big microphone in front of me. All right, thank you, Gavin. So I did call it clear item. So if I use the right name in here, things will work a lot better. I suppose it's always fun to show coding mistakes made so you can see how people work through the process of figuring out what went wrong. So there we go. I use the right name, things work as expected. So that's how you set up a toolbar initially. Very simple, straightforward. So let's switch to the drop-down project so you see how one of those is configured. So here I've already pre-built this. I have my toolbar right here, and I have two buttons on it. I get just a standard save push button set up here with its own icon, and then I have status set up as a drop-down button. Doesn't really look any different on here, but on the window, I've added that toolbar to it, and you can see there's now 3 event handlers. The open event handler is where I'm actually adding the menu that will go along with that drop-down button. So here I've created a menu item, and I've added some menus to it. And then I assign it to the status button to its drop-down menu property. And this allows it to actually have a menu when you click it. And then the action event is called when the save button is clicked. And then the drop-down menu action event is called when the status button is clicked and one of the menu items is chosen. And you can see I get the options here, and I can choose one, and you can see which one was clicked so that your app can do what it needs to do. Probably the big thing to note is just you do need to set up your drop-down menu in the open event or somewhere so that it is populated with the menu that you want there. And that kind of flows into the next example here, which is dynamic toolbar creation. So you can see here, I have a toolbar added to the project, but I haven't added anything to it. There's no buttons that have been added in the designer or anything like that. So instead, on the window, I've placed the toolbar. Then I've got 3 regular old push buttons that will manually add buttons to the toolbar. So what I've done in this project here is I've created properties for each of the buttons so I can refer to them later if I need to. And then I just check if they have been created, and if not, I create the button using code and assign all the values. And then I can even put in a space or separator. In this case, on Windows, I'm putting in a separator, but if it's not on Windows, we're going to use a flexible space, so the print button would appear on the right of the toolbar. And then again, that's just appended to the toolbar itself. So we run it and click that button. You can see the toolbar, which was already there but had nothing on it, now gets its buttons added to it with print because of the flexible space appearing on the right-hand side. And there's 2 other push buttons on the window that disable the button and actually remove the print button. And you can see the disable code just uses the property to change the enabled property to false. And the remove button actually loops through all the buttons on the toolbar. And if it finds what it wants to remove, it then removes it. And in this case, I'm going through the toolbar things in reverse order, a common technique when you're removing items from a list so the counts don't change underneath you. And then I'm also removing the space and the print button. Because if I remove one, I kind of don't need the other. So I'm removing both of those there and then nilling the properties so that they can be added back again if they're needed. And then you still can have the action event handler on the toolbar itself to do your select case so you can process which button was clicked. Let's see what that does. So you can see that now disabled. I can't click it. And then I click remove. It's yanked right off the toolbar completely. So again, this is the dynamic setup of the toolbar, so you can do it all through code if you'd rather. I've seen people that have this stuff all configurable somewhere in a preference setting or something like that. So they just use the settings that the user provided to set up the toolbar how they want using code, rather than using, say, a fixed one that's always the same. And if you did allow your users to add or remove buttons, you could save those settings and then do it yourself when your app loads. So lots of flexibility there with the buttons and how they appear on the toolbar. All right, well, that wraps up the examples I wanted to show you today. And I want to remind everyone of a few resources that are useful. First of all, you can always download the latest version of Xojo from xojo.com/download. And the latest version is 2018 release 2, which just came out last week. If you're just starting, you might want to be checking out the Introduction to Programming book at xojo.com/learn. And of course, I like to always direct people to our user community on the forum at forum.xojo.com. A great place to search for answers to your questions or even ask questions if you have them. And of course, the Xojo Dev Center, home for all the documentation and materials at developer.xojo.com. And there's also a section in the user guide on desktop toolbars that you might find helpful to refer to. All right, I think that wraps it up for today. I want to thank everyone for attending. Have a great day.